What's up, football fans? Welcome into NFL Daily here by Chat Sports. My name is Moose on this post-draft edition of NFL Daily, and we have got some very juicy rumors to talk about. The latest in the NFL surrounding our very first candidate, Mr. Nick Chubb. Could he be going to the Chicago Bears? I don't think it needs to be said at this point that he's been kind of linked to an anonymous NFC North team. It's the Bears. Everybody knows it's the Bears. But here's what Mary Kay Cabot had to say a couple of weeks ago on the Nick Chubb situation in Cleveland. It's the end of the Nick Chubb era in Cleveland, and it's sad it has to end this way. The face of the franchise since he rumbled through the doors in 2018, Chubb should have finished his career with the team that drafted and developed him. Are we ready to say goodbye to Nick Chubb? This is from Ken Carman, who is a radio personality in Cleveland. Are we ready to say goodbye to Nick Chubb? I heard he's getting kind of close to a deal with another team that happens to be in the NFC North. And like I said, everyone was speculating, who could that possibly be? Well, the truth is there's only one team that needs a running back in the NFC North, and that's the Chicago Bears. If you think about all the other teams, Packers have Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit, and then in Minnesota, you've got Aaron Jones and now Jordan Mason. So the only team that actually makes sense would be the Chicago Bears. And even more so, if you look at what they did in the draft, they didn't address running back until round 7. And Kyle Monangai, I'm going to be completely honest with you, one of my favorite players to play with in NCAA football 2025, but I don't foresee him taking over the starting reps in Chicago. I mean, it's not going to happen. And the Bears running back room, as it currently sits, has DeAndre Swift leading the charge, followed by Roschon Johnson, and then Kyle Monangai is going to compete for that RB2, RB3 spot as it currently sits. Now, does that mean that he won't take over the running back 2 spots in, say week 7 or week 8? Because I thought last year Roschon Johnson didn't do nearly enough to solidify his spot at RB2. To me, this sounds like Nick Chubb to the Bears is mutually beneficial for both parties. The Bears need a solid RB1, someone that can pair as the thunder to DeAndre Swift's lightning, because Swift isn't a 3-down back. He does well in open space. He's good in the passing game. Nick Chubb is that bruiser back that plays that 2000 style football, is going to plow through you. And although I don't think he's the fastest player, and with his injuries of late, I still think you can get 75 to 80% of the Nick Chubb of old. The Browns have no need for him. I mean, they drafted Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, and you've already got Jerome Ford there. So Cleveland has clearly said, we love you, we thank you for your time, but we're going younger and we're going healthier. And it sounds like now, this Nick Chubb to the Bears, it has serious legs. And I want that to be the case because, like I said, it's mutually beneficial for both teams. And again, you don't need to have the Bears sign him to a 2 or 3 year contract. A 1-year prove-it deal is more than enough, especially with Ben Johnson in the at the helm now for Chicago. He could clearly say, look, we're just renting you as a running back. If you do well enough, you can go out and get another contract to end out your career. Or if you do really well, hey, maybe we sign you for the next 2 or 3 years and you become a staple in our offense. I know Ben Johnson loves to run some really interesting techniques and really interesting play packages with his running backs. Last year with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs being the prime example. So here's what I'm going to ask you, though. Rather than ask you about Nick Chubb, I want you to name a player that's going to break out with a new team in 2025. I want to say Nick Chubb could possibly do this, but I think it's going to be DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm going to tell you why I feel like that's going to be coming up later on in the show with one of our other rumors. But let's go on to our second news nugget, or rumor nugget, I should say. Jaire Alexander staying in Green Bay. So I've talked a lot to our Packers host, Mr. Joey Peterson, who, believe it or not, is also on the 1s and 2s today. And it feels like Jaire staying in Green Bay might happen. Here's what Josina Anderson had to say about the whole situation. I'm told that there's already an understanding in place between the Packers and Jaire, so they understand where either side is coming from. Obviously, Jaire Alexander, with his injuries of late, has not been a fully healthy participant for the Packers. In fact, he's only played in one fully healthy season. He played in 16 games in 2022. But prior to that, 2021, he played in 4. And the last 2 seasons, he played in 7 games each, respectively. And right now, currently, he's not in attendance for the Packers' in-person workouts. Now, that doesn't mean everything, right? A player of his caliber and his veteran status, they don't always need to show up to these involuntary workouts. But I do think that not something is, what's the phrase? Not everything is something, but something is everything, or something like that. I don't know. I'm all over the place with my sayings right now. But the truth is that I believe there's a little something to this. Jaire is putting it out there that he wants a contract done. And if the Green Bay Packers aren't going to do it, he wants them to release him. Now, luckily enough for Jaire and also for the Packers, trade/release talks are still an option. Jacina Anderson posted that as well. She said, look, it's understood that the Packers and Jaire know what each other want, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're close to getting a deal done. And if you take a look, like I said, last couple of years, Alexander has not been a commodity. The best ability is availability, and his last full season, if you want to call it that, was in 2022. And there are some teams I know out there for sure that are going to be great fits for Alexander if he were to get traded or released. The 49ers could use all the corner help that they could get. Same with the Chiefs on the opposite side of Trent McDuffie. The Steelers could always use somebody in the Rams to add. All of these defenses, by the way, have really good cores. They are just a couple of pieces away from being legit contenders, albeit the Steelers already have a really, really good defense. Now, again, it all comes down to the money, right? Jaire's a very outspoken player. He's very, very clear and forthcoming with what he believes he's worth, and he believes he is worth in top 3 cornerback money. He believes he should be above $25 million. Now, would I pay him that? Not if I'm the Packers. In fact, I think he gets traded post-June 1st. I feel like the Packers and Jaire, the writing is kind of on the wall, and there's an unspoken word in that room, and that is, hey, we're kind of tired of his antics. We're kind of tired with him every single year having something to say about the offense or something to say about the team in a negative aspect, and he's never available. So it just kind of makes sense that a trade would happen if Green Bay can get any trade value out of him. Now, if you do decide to trade him, it also frees up a ton of cap space. $17 million post-June 1st is insane work. So, to me, it just, if A equals B and B equals C, then A's got to equal C. It looks like a trade is going to happen for Jaire. Now, I know he is outspoken and said, I don't want to be traded. If the Packers aren't going to re-sign me, then just cut me so I can go decide where I want to play and get my money elsewhere. And speaking of elsewhere, other teams, by the way, have awesome, awesome deals with our friends over at Fanatics. If you want to support your team's first round pick, all you have to do is use this link that I've got here in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to Fanatics for having some of the best gear in the NFL. I've already bought 2 jerseys from Fanatics, and I love both of them. So again, I'm going to put this in the comments and description of today's video. If you want to take your fandom to the next level, do it with Fanatics. All right. So enough about Jaire. On to our last little rumor nugget. George Pickens. Is there a trade incoming for him? And at first, I thought to myself, this probably won't happen. There's no way. You've got a dynamic duo now between DK Metcalf and George Pickens, regardless of who's going to be at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But James Palmer from Bleacher Report actually had a little bit more of an inside scoop that leads me to believe a trade might happen, and moving off of George Pickens might happen in Pittsburgh. Here's what he had to say. I really wasn't sold on a Pickens trade during the draft. There were a lot of rumors about that, and I understand the rumors because his name in Pittsburgh, in a lot of people's mind, is limited, mine included. You don't pay, though, a DK Metcalf what you paid him, and then pay the other receiver a high-caliber salary. In fact, I can only think of one team that's doing this right now, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And if you look on the list of highest-paid receivers in the NFL per year, DK he's top 5, baby. So, and I also think DK is a better version of what George Pickens is, right? Which is a vertical threat. Now, it was clear he was the number one option last year for Pittsburgh with their kind of duo of quarterbacks of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And these numbers are okay. They're not great. This isn't wide receiver one type of statistics that way. And to me, that means it's not going to equal wide receiver one pay. But this year, I feel like it's just a little bit too late. I feel like with all of the off the field antics that, well, it wasn't always off the field. Sometimes it was on the field as well, that Pickens had where, he quits on plays and, blows off his team in the locker room, refuses to speak to the media. Mike Tomlin has been outspoken and said he needs to grow up. I feel like he's going to stay in Pittsburgh this year because I don't think teams are going to bite on him. Now, with that being said, after the 2025 season, anything's possible. The Dallas Cowboys could absolutely use a guy like George Pickens. Same with the Raiders. The Niners to replace Deebo Samuel, I could take it or leave it. The Giants could use another player of his caliber. And, of course, the Green Bay Packers, even though after drafting Matthew Golden, let's be honest, Christian Watson is not going to be a long-term answer in Green Bay. It's just not going to happen. So, Diana. See, I told you, I'm all over the place, a little loopy today. Diana Rossini actually said this last week about this whole situation as well. She said the Steelers have been receiving calls about the availability of George Pickens per sources. Pittsburgh is open to conversations as it navigates Friday night without a second-round pick. So this was going back last week to the NFL draft. Now, obviously, nothing happened, so that leads me to believe that unless something happens quite literally right after the June 1st designation, I think George Pickens is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler heading into the 2025 season. Also understanding they don't have a quarterback right now. Aaron Rodgers is their, plan A, but all their eggs seem to be in that basket, and that's a scary place to be because your next best available option is, Mason Rudolph? They just drafted Will Howard, so it's kind of slim pickings right now, no pun intended, in Pittsburgh. Now, if you have made it all the way this far and you keep up with the NFL all year long, do me a favor, hit subscribe, lock us in for the best all year round free NFL coverage. I almost said NFL draft coverage. NFL coverage here on YouTube. My name is Moose. Until next time, be cool.